Welcome to Business as Unusual. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, so if you have any questions, please add them to the chat and I'll try to get to all of them during today's session. I'm Kathy Steele, the CEO of Red Caffeine and your host today. And for those of you unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we're a growth consultancy and we build and execute go-to-market plans for ambitious companies who want to scale their business. Really appreciate you joining us today for this pivotal discussion that is both timely and critical, selling in a recessionary time. The current economic environment, marked by low consumer and investor confidence, poses distinct challenges. Long-held sales conventions are being upended and businesses are facing lower sales velocity, lengthier sales cycles, higher customer churn, and an overall drop in sales. The imperative question arises, what should you do to survive and thrive in such a climate? While some are resorting to cost reduction measures, often compromising long-term growth prospects, we believe there's some smarter strategies to adopt. So we've tailored today's content to executives seeking to pivot their sales operations and seize the potential opportunities amid this financial turbulence. Well, we're really thrilled today to have three sales experts who have probably seen it all in their careers, and they're joining us today. We have my frequent co-host Tom Lederay from M3 Learning, and he is creating sales superstars. We've got Jankowski from Sales Xceleration and Bob Lambert from Samurai Business Group. So welcome, gentlemen. I'd love to give you guys a few minutes just to give a short intro about who you are and your company. John, could you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to participate today. So yeah, again, my name is John Jankowski with Sales Xceleration, and I advise clients on their best sales strategy to solve their revenue problems. At the end of the day, we put in all of the strategy, organization, processes, and methodology, along with the related analytics for repeatable success and growth.
Perfect.
Again, Kathy, thank you. I'm Bob Lambert. I'm the founding partner of the Samurai Business Group, which we've had now for going on 25 years, just recently merged with another company called QCSS, where now we're going to have the full scope of everything we can do. So we can do lead generation, appointment setting, and then I can take and do very sophisticated upscale B2B sales training and sales management training for individuals and also for SMBs from about 10 million to 100 million.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob. And then Tom, I want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more about M3 besides, creating sales superstars.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Lederay with M3 Learning. Bob Lambert and I have known each other for, it's got to be 20 some years, right? And
Right.
I've been blessed to have Bob in my circle of people that I consider just sales mentors and, fantastic folks for us to have these sales conversations. Our organization, like Bob's, helps salespeople, sales managers really get better at the sales call itself. We work and coach folks to measure, metric, and how do I stay internally motivated and how do I motivate others? And that's really what M3 focuses on, is how do we help salespeople and sales teams get better and get more effective and productive?
Yeah, I think that's probably challenging today to stay motivated and enthusiastic when sales is much more challenging than it has been in the past couple of years. We knew that the sales gods were going to frown on us eventually, so here we are. But let's get kicked off. I want to really start by setting up kind of some practical tips to building more that robust business development foundation. I think for us, as we even think about like sales and marketing and integrating those two systems, adding some process tools, technologies, people to the mix. So John, can you kick us off and tell us a little bit about how you approach that question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like with many aspects in every organization, it starts with putting together a great team. So you have to have a great team of business development experts in place. But really, before you get that team on board, you have to have the infrastructure components. right? You have to have a viable job description. You have to have minimum expectations for the role. You have to have new hire training. And you also have to have a coaching plan for your new business development team. So you have to have all of those infrastructure components in place. And then on, then as you do the continued training, right, there's the week to week and month to month continuous training in terms of helping those individuals understand your organization's value proposition, which should resonate with all of your customers. And then an understanding of who, where are you hunting? Who are your ideal customers? In what vertical are they in? Are there adjacencies when you start to have success in the key vertical that you're targeting to? When can you expand? You do have to be careful about those adjacencies because they can take your focus off of your initial ideal customer targets. So putting all of those things in place, and then making sure you've got the appropriate coaching for that team week to week and quarter to quarter is really critical.
Kathy, can I add something? I was
Absolutely.
just at a 3-day conference of sales enablement professionals in Miami just a few days ago. And John, you mentioned the word coaching probably 4 times. There was a statistic that they shared that 55% of sellers today in the last 12 months had 0 coaching. And they also said that 61% of sellers today are looking for another job. Coincidence?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is the sellers, they're being thrown into jobs. They're not being coached to be better or how they can grow. And so, John, I love what you said. I love the fact that you mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and
Yeah. And
organizations
I would
get that.
I would add one other quick thing, especially, new folks coming into the sales profession, they're eager to learn. They want to be successful. And this goes as well for, people who've been in the industry for a long time. In my 30-year career, rarely, I can tell you there's probably, less than a dozen people that just weren't interested in being successful. Most individuals, professionals want to be successful. They don't want you on their back, but they need the coaching. And it's the biggest limiting factor, and not just in sales. It's in, just about every aspect of every company.
Yeah, Bob, is there anything you would add?
These guys, these guys are all we're all on the same page here. I would share also that particularly that's really important, particularly for the subject we're talking about, is to concentrate on Pareto's law. 20% of your customers are doing 80% of your business. That's where business is going to happen. And not just in these times, I'm talking about across the board. I think too many people get their eye off the ball and they're all over the place going for new logos, new business, which you have to do for growth. But also, they don't really, love on the folks that are already taking care of them and doing business with them. And more importantly, when people move on, do they follow them? Do you do that? So, yeah. And we've had the privilege and honor of being part of DePaul University's Center for Sales Leadership. Now I sat on that board for 25 years. And through our teaching and buying decision model, that has now spread to 36 colleges and universities now. So it's really about, and I think all these guys agree, and I know you do, Kathy, it's about relationships. And I have to tell you, we got to get back to this kind of relationship, live, person to person again, because that's what it's all about, and we've lived in a digital world for a number of years now. And I think slowly but surely people are starting to realize, having those trusted relationships and building the trust, especially for salespeople, that is paramount. They're not going to do business with people they don't know, like, or trust, and trust trumps everything.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree. And I think the only thing I would add on just from, the overall market or marketing lens would be about, really helping build your brand position, your brand in the marketplace so that your sales team has something of a reputation to, it's a lot harder to sell when you're an unknown entity. So I think that, like, when we talk about new logos or entering a new market, I think the expectation is a lot of times that we're going to get business just by putting sales teams in a new vertical without putting some type of brand awareness, alongside those salespeople in a new vertical. So,
And that's a great point. I've turned down the sales assignments because they didn't have their act together with marketing. How am I
right,
going to teach these people when they don't even know what they're selling or what the proposition is or anything else,
yeah,
Bob, you mentioned something, and you said it. You really started the conversation in the space of, how you focus on existing customers. I remember, a bunch of years ago, when I joined a networking group, probably one of the most powerful things I ever saw was you teaching the circles of networking, and I mean, it's I, I can't thank you enough for that. I mean, it really founded me, but really basically it was, hey, don't concentrate on the 1,000 people. Figure out who are those 15 or 20 people that are going to make a difference for you. Why is focusing on existing customers so important today during challenging financial times? What would you say to that, Bob? And John, I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what's on that.
Well, that's my drum beat right now. I was just in front of 28 CFOs, and I was letting them know that you got your finger in the pulse of what's going on. That's the revenue, and focusing on current clients and past clients that know you. You got a trust factor there.
Yeah.
Okay, there. My belief is, and I've seen this through 6 recessions, people aren't buying from anybody that they don't know, like, or trust. And
Yeah.
trust, again, is paramount. So if you have established a trusted relationship, first place to go. Make sure you're doing a great job with the current customers. And that is a lot of fear factor. It's amazing to me how many salespeople don't ask or have a QRB or something, on a quarterly basis or a biannual basis. How are we doing? What else could we be doing for you? What are the kind of opportunities? And also that you got to become a resource and an asset to clients. Once you do that, outside the scope of what you do, okay, become a resource and asset. By doing that, focusing on that, and really giving that deep consideration during these times, you're going to do 2 things. You're going to discover that these clients have other things that they need that you might provide. It might be marketing. You might say, hey, boy, our marketing is a shamble or anything like that. Digital, what do we do? Okay, I'm not in that business, but guess what? I got people that are, and people that I trust, and I know they're going to get that job done. The other thing too is I gave this talk to, and it kind of got deer in the headlights. Look, turn your company into a business development machine. Anybody that touches that customer should go through training and understand what it is that you're trying to do. And I would have, and I've done this before, other recessions, get every single person in the company in LinkedIn, get them all in LinkedIn. And then the leadership, sales leadership, let them know who you're targeting. And then find out, is there anybody you know? Is there anybody in your LinkedIn that we could take and go through that channel? It expands exponentially what the possibilities are. And literally in that particular company several years ago, an '08 downturn, they uncovered 5 big opportunities just within the walls of their company. And the other part of that is you offer, just like you do a referral for a new employee or something like, do the same thing for this.
Yeah.
And people are thrilled because they feel like they're contributing. And anyway, I'll let other people speak.
Bob, I wanted to add and ask you one follow-on question. I think what's so interesting when we onboard new people, we spend all this time training them about our stuff, what we do, how we do it, instead of having them understand the impact of our stuff on the customer's business, the problems we solve. And what are your thoughts on that? I think when you involve everyone in your organization and really help them see the impact we make for our customers, it almost creates natural spaces of, hey, we're helping you here, but we could even help you here or there. What do
Yeah.
you guys, how do you guys think organizations should address that?
I'll let John speak.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say before we get to that, I mean, can you tell Bob is passionate about this? I mean, the voice inflections go up. He's talking at a mile a minute. Is great. I love seeing it. And with all these sales professionals on the call, there's certainly no downtime in the air for sure. But Bob, you mentioned a couple of quick things that I think is really important for the audience. When you have credibility with an existing customer, and you surely better, right? You need to make sure that all of your customers are happy with your products and services. But when you have credibility, it's the easiest thing to go back to them for, other opportunities versus trying to win that new logo. New logos
Right.
are, as we all agree, you have to win new logos. That's how you will continue to expand as an organization. But in downtimes, organizations become very risk averse to making new decisions, new partnerships. So going back to those existing customers because you have that credibility is extremely important. One other quick item that Bob mentioned, I think you mentioned QRB, or they're called QBRs, at least in my nomenclature. Doing that quarterly review with your customers, doing the report card to make sure, and listen, addressing the areas where you're not, we're all not perfect. No company is perfect, but doing that quarterly review with your clients to make sure they're happy and understanding where they may have additional needs, and not just for your own benefit, right? But to be able to listen to your client and to refer other great assets and partners that that might be able to help your client, right? Your clients expect you're going to, meet or ideally exceed their expectations. What they don't always expect is that you're always looking out for other ways to serve them and bring in other credible, trusted partners. So in those down times, it's a great strategy. And especially, I just wanted to reemphasize that quarterly review that should be happening with all of the customers.
The quarterly reviews, as you said, Jen, and it could be biannual, but the fact of the matter is that uncovers things. To your point, what other things should we be doing? How can we upscale the value of what we bring to them?
Right.
But here's another thing I give to you that we had a client that it just was amazing. It was, what do your customer value? And having those conversations about their customers and what they value. In an example, we had a client that was giving away some tips and ideas for manufacturing. They weren't charging for it. Okay. Once they we pushed them into it, start charging for that. It was amazing what happened, because now you're putting a value on something that they're contributing to downstream to their customers. And people are delighted with that. I mean, how many people do that for them? They're in sales, they're concentrating on what I'm selling you and not looking, what's your customer value,
Right.
and how could we help with that? Believe me, it's just like helping somebody's kid get off the payroll, getting them a job. Be endeared to you for the rest of your life.
So we've got a question from the audience. If you have a product, service, or special offering that is designed to help prospects or clients during tough economic times, do you need to present it in a different way?
You got to start with that product offering and what is the value of that, and is that a fit for the customer? Now, I'll encourage anybody to ask the questions, and get them engaged in a conversation about that. And a lot of that is what we coach, teach and train is the Socratic method of questioning. There's only two professions that are trained in that educationally. That's healthcare providers and lawyers, one for good and the other one for evil. But that's beside the point. So, that in my estimation with that is, whenever you're presenting something new and you're taking out in the market, obviously, Kathy, you can speak that you got to do your homework. You got to do your research. Are you just creating something that there's no market for? And then in that particular case, you better be doing your homework with your current base. Is this something that they want or need or whatever? That's why these QBRs are extremely important, because then's where you get ideas you can innovate with your clients.
Right.
Yeah, we totally love QBRs too. I think, when you're delivering for a client, you tend to get really tactical on, like, this is the laundry list that we have to get done in July, instead of having that, operational, financial, sales, marketing. Like, you're really talking about the top line of what is going on in the organization. And so a QBR gives you an opportunity to get outside the lane, talk more strategically, and it typically unearths either opportunities for you or opportunities for you to, connect your client with somebody else and bring value in a different way.
The other thing I bring into that too is bring your top execs, get it top to top, because then they're going to see how engaged you are in that business. If you're just talking to your buyer or, a committee or something like that. But when you can bring in, and we've had several clients that have done this, and they've literally put on events around this. And Ben, it's been unbelievable what's happened for them. To your point, Kathy, credibility goes up. I mean, you know,
Yeah, we just hosted an event yesterday, and it was one of the always love when our clients get together and they can hear each other about what we're doing for them, and they came away with some easy ideas to lifted from stuff that we were doing from the other clients. So I do love that peer experience too. It really you exponentially learn faster when you're surrounded by your peers of
Yeah, no question. I would just add one other thing to the person that asked the question. If you have something of value to your clients or prospects in tough economic times or in great economic times, right? You don't have to be delicate about that.
Yeah.
If there's something that can really help them grow their business, go full force, go frontal at that market and prosper. If you've got something that's valuable, it's rough during tough economic times, of course, but if you got something that's of value and they will appreciate it, that's you're in a great place.
Well, if you're selling from a place of, I really want to help you solve your problems instead
Right.
of just selling you stuff,
Yeah.
selling you
Right.
my stuff,
No question.
you're going to come across as a person, the reason I'm having this conversation is because I want to help you
Right.
get through these difficult times. I'm not just trying to push products. I want to be seen as a strategic partner instead of just a salesperson, right?
Right. Yeah. Having that sincerity is absolutely key. And just like everybody on this call has seen someone who's not sincere, and you're like, okay, I know what this is all about. If you're sincere about it and there's real value there, you're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, I think one of the other tactics that we employ is talking, doing interviews with our clients, prospects and clients. And we just conducted a couple of sentiment surveys just to understand what's on their mind. Do they want new products? Do they want, improved lead times? What is really, going to add value to their experience? I feel like that's a lost opportunity that not all organizations are willing to invest in. I think the research can really unearth a lot of interesting opportunities, as well as if there is dissatisfaction. And I believe people are very flattered when you ask their opinion about something and are really willing to share. I think it works better when you've got a third party doing those interviews, or you get a little bit more honest feedback. But surveys do work as well. So,
yeah, I agree. We've used them as well, and I will say the one thing that you have to be prepared for when you get the feedback is you do, as an organization who's receiving feedback, constructive feedback on where to improve in some of those things. If your clients or customers take the time to suggest those things, which is a big commitment from themselves. We all get these surveys after we take our car in, or if you've even if you go to see your doctor now, and when you complete those and you take the time, whether it's 3 minutes or 15 minutes, the hope is there's going to be some change based on the feedback, and maybe not the next day, but certainly over time. And so for all the organizations, right, that are receiving that feedback, you do have to take that to heart, and you do have to institute those changes, or at least some of them, over time.
Yeah, I mean, we turn them into marketing opportunities, content around that pain point or that.
Yeah.
So I think even leveraging that to think about how do you communicate post a sentiment survey or a customer satisfaction survey can really guide the information you're sharing with both your current customers and prospects.
Yeah.
One of the challenges and I love this place of how do I help salespeople stay engaged with existing accounts? One of the challenges I see in a lot of just organizations is we've created this mentality of hunt and kill. So the salesperson gets the job, they check the box, they move on to the next opportunity. And our incentive programs are set up like that. Our whole culture is set up like that. What are your guys' suggestions for companies and how we switch from this space of, okay, I hunt and kill, to I foster and I create relationships and opportunities that last long term instead of just one transaction?
Yeah, I've really, and Bob, I'll let you go in a second. I have really strong opinions on this.
Yep.
As someone who is ebb and flowed in very large organizations before I started my own practice in conjunction with sales acceleration. And that is compensation plans drive all behavior, intended and unintended consequences. And, in some organizations, those compensation plans can be very complex. And I have another really strong piece of advice: keep them as simple as possible, but you've got to motivate your teams to stay engaged with your clients. And there's multiple ways to do that besides the primary sales team, but your primary sales team is your best engagement there because they're on the front lines all the time. There's also, customer success teams, depending on how large the organization is, but you can motivate that sales professional to stay engaged by the appropriate compensation plans, for sure.
Yeah. Boy, here's a lot of wisdom here, guys. That's all I can tell you, especially with bigger team. I've seen lots of comp plans, and one of the things that I've seen emerge when the focus has been on the customer is part of the comp plan has this basic rating as to how the customer rates the sales rep. Okay. When you see the ratings right now, most buyers, over 75% of them think, that sales calls and the presentations, everything add no value whatsoever.
Wow.
I'm a big believer of that salesperson's is the front door, and they're the ones that are going to lead it through. I always want to keep that main rep engaged in with the client. Even if it's handed over to success team or inside sales or customer service, they need to be engaged in everything what's going on, even if it's just a QBR or half year, whatever it might be. They really need to be engaged. So to your point, Tom, this hunt method, it's all the incentive on that. You're walking away from basically you're going to have client turnover. I'm serious. If you don't have properly trained people that are handling the client, like customer service or inside sales, whatever it might be, they have to have the kind of training to be able to be a farmer with that client, and the nurturing and the care and everything else that they need to do. But most driven salespeople, hard charging salespeople, follow the money with them.
Yeah, no question.
Incent the behavior you want.
John,
It also goes back to.
I met somebody over the last 2 days that said the question he asked. He brings a napkin and he gives it to a salesperson. He goes, "Describe your compensation plan on this napkin, and if you can't write it down, it's too complicated."
That's great. That's great. And I'm sure about 90%, if not more, can't, right? You're talking about the whole package of that.
To your point, when I grew up, it was like you had a business card, and if you can't articulate on the back of a business card what your value prop is, you don't know what it is,
Yeah, right. One other thing about the appropriate incentives and comp aligned to, the behavior for the sales professional, there's also, you're going to hear this repeatedly out of me. It's also that coaching of that sales team. And somebody talked about the team selling concept, and that team selling concept with your sales leader and that sales professional engaged with that client to ensure that all of those behaviors and that focus on the client is happening. It's so unfortunate that sometimes in an organization, your sales leaders are leading an organization or a sales team by spreadsheet and numbers only. And trust me, that's critical, right? The numbers, listen, we're in sales, we sign up for a number, the number is going to get bigger every year. If you don't like that, you should probably get out of the sales industry. But managing, sales leaders especially, and this is why I'm spending so much time in my new career trying to help sales leaders. They get you worried about individual contributors not getting any coaching. You're a great individual contributor. Now you become a sales leader. Where's your coaching? What are you supposed to do? Right? What are they supposed to do? Well, I'll try what worked for me as an individual contributor and leading this team. And, that may work for a couple of people on the team, and it may have the opposite effect for everybody else on the team. But that coaching piece is so critical. When you want to keep those clients in place, you got to have the multiple touch points, and that team selling concept that we spoke of earlier is really important. I think there's another question in the chat.
was there?
Yeah, there is another question. So I think the question is really about sort of a distributed sales, like channel partner or distribution sales strategy that I know that a lot of organizations employ, where it's like a B to B to B sale or a B to B to C sale.
Mm-hmm.
What what would you consider? So curious to know how important leveraging BIRs, distributors at this time would be, especially for a startup
Yeah,
that's
value-added
That's
resellers.
huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. You're especially in terms of tough economic times, and this is a balance, especially in the tech industry, right? There is a strong preponderance to want to sell through lots and lots of partners, and trying to educate and motivate all those partners on your particular piece of software versus all the other things they have access to can be difficult. So
Yeah.
focus is really critical. Finding those partners who are interested, appreciate the value, understand your ideal customer, that can be a really, really good strategy to help you scale your sales organization. I will say, though, that it's really key, as someone who spent a lot of time, with my team trying to educate partners across the country, trying to educate all of them can be, especially in economic times where the ROI on your channel managers is put under huge constraints. And generally, the first place an organization is going to cut if numbers are constrained. So you really have to be focused in your approach.
Yeah. The other thing I would share too is that uh, we did this with a very large client in the home building business, and what we did was the BDMs. Then we trained them all up, both in sales and sales management, and then we went out with them to train the builders, okay, and how to do that. Now, if you ever been around builders, they're a rough and tumble bunch, and there was a lot of them that were a little bit older, not really wanting to change. But what that did is over 8 years, they had 25% year-over-year increases. And the other thing, you get the attention of your distributor if you're willing to invest in them from a training standpoint, how to go out and sell this stuff, not just the knowledge, not just the product information or the technical knowledge. That is really important. I get that. But there's too much emphasis on that in sales and not enough on the relationship building and really bringing value. And how do you get out of the customer and start with the customer first, and the buyer's mind as to what it is that they're looking for. Treat your channel managers exactly the same way, your distributors. You got to treat them as customers
yeah,
and help
exactly.
them.
That
Yeah.
was, I mean,
Yeah, no
you've
question.
done, just actual marketing strategies. We're working on one currently where we're, helping a company, empower their distribution network. But, it's just the same. They're your customer. You have
Yep.
to communicate with them. You have to build the relationships with them. You have to be able to support them to support you. They have a lot of influence over the buying decision. You have to give them the tools and the technology and the know-how to sell you in, know how to talk about your offering versus the competition. Those are all really important factors into a successful distribution or distributed selling channel.
To both John and Bob's points, I think the difference, a salesperson distinguishes themselves when they use a pull-through model, when they go to a distributor and they help them grow their business
Right,
instead of going, hey, here's my product, I expect you to sell it.
right.
I'm willing to go on sales calls with you. I'm
Yep.
going to train you. All of those things that make you different and show the salespeople there that, yeah, I'm going to help you. We're going to help you grow the business together.
Yeah, those channel relationships, those partners, whether it's 2-tier or 3-tier, they are an exercise in building trusted and valued partnerships.
Yeah.
I did a podcast with somebody else on just this topic alone, and what does it take to build that? And it's like every other great trusted partnership that you have, whether you're married, whether it's a close friend. It's all about having that trust and bringing that person into the fold with somewhat and semi-confidential information and taking an interest in their success. And when you do that and invest in that, you'll see, like Bob was sharing, right? Good, strong growth year over year with those partnerships. And when you're guarded, or you're not communicating effectively because you spoke to a customer and they introduced you to the customer and you didn't include them, or there's all sorts of examples, that's when those partnerships do not flourish. And then you start wondering, oh, wow, why should I invest in, these types of channels? So there are great ones out there, and it's all about, it's all about cultivating any great relationship or partnership that you have.
We're into words, and language has power. So I'm going to give you guys a couple new ones, okay? You hear a lot about trusted advisor, and it's thrown around and bandied around and I ad nauseum, okay? We changed all that probably 12 years ago by talking about your point of distinction, that you are a trusted asset or a trusted resource. So when I say trusted asset, trusted resource, or trusted advisor, which one of those would you really gravitate towards, right? If it's a trusted asset, you're getting there's a return on that relationship, right? If you're a trusted resource, you're the go-to person that can talk to me about a lot of different areas. Kathy's that way. I mean, all you guys are that way. So that is the thing we talk about now. When somebody describes, or I talk to people, I'm a trusted asset, I'm a trusted resource. I'm never an advisor.
I like that so much more. It's
I
so much more powerful. Yeah.
love it. I totally love it.
And also not a point of distinction, because we hear a lot of that. I go to a conference or whatever, there's no point of distinction. You take the signs down, they're all the same, right?
Yeah.
How about a point of distinction? Distinctive looking red dress that Kathy has on, all the awards in the background, distinctive, and the Distinguished Medal of Honor. I mean, when you think about this in the mind's eye, those, when you look in the dictionary, they both have the same meaning. But when I say to you, distinct or something distinctive, there's a uniqueness in the mind's eye, okay? And there's a call out that there's something unique about this.
Yeah, I would not disagree. I want to go back to something John started to walk into around team selling. I think that was something that we wanted to make sure we touched on today. When I think about team selling, I honestly think there's some opportunity to accelerate, having a more senior team at the table earlier in the sales funnel versus waiting. I think Skip talked about that in a session, Tom, maybe a few months ago, about really not, elongating the sales process, really bringing your best to the table right away and making sure that customer or prospect is feeling really loved. What other sales or team sales strategies are you guys employing or seeing happen right now?
We did this with a client in the last 3 years of engagement, and we really brought to the table something they hadn't been doing. Anybody that's going to be involved with that client, and particularly if they're going to be doing presentations, particularly technical people, you need to script all that ahead of time. You need to make sure that they understand what their role is. You role play that thing. You have meetings ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
If it's top to top, who's handling that? It's really important, because I think too many people go into sales presentations or whatever it might be, proposals, and they're winging it, and then all of a sudden you get acrimony within the team, particularly the technical person. Well, hey, that's not quite right. We can't do it that way, and you get the eyes back and forth like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So and we push this a lot, as a salesperson, you're the leader, step up to the plate and lead. And then you delegate off in certain areas, but you're like the orchestra leader. You're going to orchestrate this thing and be able to make sure that it's practiced ahead of time. I don't care if that's a big deal or a smaller deal. You got to come across as being professional. People have a lot more confidence in your company and you, because people buy from you first and then your company. When you show that you are a team coming in there and a well-oiled machine, man, the confidence level goes up with the prospect. The client even, too. And don't be shy about that. I had the privilege and honor of growing up in a big global company, a little company called Nestle. And what we had I started in marketing, but what I had to do is once a quarter, I had to be a whole week out with the sales organization. And then we would bring salespeople inside to go through, operations and production and all that. So they really got an understanding, because I think, people think, salespeople from Mars and other people from Venus, and there's, they don't have a concept of what each other's jobs are.
Right.
They think salespeople go out and golf, have lunches, and drink three, have 3 martini lunches or something.
Yeah, I think the aspect of team selling, whether you're in a large organization or a small organization, if you think about it, as we all should from our client's perspective, our clients want a relationship with multiple individuals in an organization for a whole bunch of reasons. But the obvious being, listen, if something happens to my primary sales rep, I want to make sure I have a relationship with somebody else in the organization who is concerned and knows about my business, the amount of money we spent together, and has a general concern for my organization. So even in a small company, that sales rep with the founder, right? That's team selling.
Huge.
But then it goes much deeper into your subject matter experts, whether that's in the services space, in the product space. And so there's lots of opportunities to engage those resources. And the last thing I'll share, sometimes there's a lot of good habits out there and a lot of good leadership, and there's some that's not so good. And culturally, I go back to that example of the spreadsheet, sales leader as one bad example. Culturally, if your organization, doesn't have this concept of team selling, you, as Bob was just saying, you are the orchestrator of your sales role. You need to push, and you need to push for that engagement, and you will get better results than you had without that engagement, without that team selling concept, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially.
There was another. Oh, sorry, Kathy. I was just going to share another fascinating statistic that was shared. Is that 10 years ago, the average person was in 5 to 7 different jobs in their career. That number is now somewhere between 14 and 20. And so those team selling opportunities, you're creating relationships for the future, not necessarily for that one transaction.
Yeah.
And so us knowing who all the key players are, you never know what's going to happen when they get promoted, when they move somewhere else. They're going to bring you along with them if you've done a nice job.
Yeah, we used to call that walk in the halls.
Well, all our businesses are like a fractional service offering. We're augmenting teams. So I 100% agree. I love the ensemble sale. I've done some work with Second City just to really understand how to, pass the baton and not leave somebody in a room that says nothing, like where one person's talking, even though there's 6 of your team at the conference table. But I do feel like that, being able to leverage that ensemble kind of sale and it's incredibly beneficial to a fractional offering, because then if somebody leaves the team, even if it's their like main day-to-day contact, they have the other people on your team. I that's the kind of feedback that I'm hearing from leaders that are looking to hire companies like ours that provide that fractional officer. They've seen their internal like full-time employees transition out, and with a team, they're not going to have that kind of replacement cost or new hire cost that they would if they hired a fractional team. So
you just made me think of something when you talked about the ensemble, and having worked in companies like IBM and HPE, I'm always wanting to make sure we talk about the unintended consequences of the team sell, where, we're doing an executive briefing with a Fortune 500, and we now have 20 people from our team, right, in that executive briefing. And in the exact, the feedback, from the client is, if you've got that many people in a room that can spend the day without saying anything, I'm concerned about doing business with your organization. And so I'm sure we don't have any folks like that on this webinar or live stream, but the opposite, it can be true, right? You can take that too far. So you have to be careful as the orchestrator, as the sales professional that's going to orchestrate that team sell. You have to make sure everybody has a specific role, and people who try to now come into that sales process with you, if they don't have a specific role at that time, you also have to use your voice to say, now is not the right time. We'll find the next QBR for you to come in and share things, and bring additional points of distinction for our organization. Now is not the right time. But as the sales professional, you've got to own that voice and orchestrate that process, or it has the potential to bite you.
So it's hard to believe that already we've talked for 45 minutes, and it's a fantastic conversation, but I've got one last question before Kathy asks another question. So we're having a conversation about how you work through financial times that we're experiencing. We know it's going to get better. So what are the things that you're advising salespeople and sales teams to do today to prepare for when things get better, when things get unleashed? What are the things that a sales professional should be doing to make sure that when it hits, I'm able to ramp up pretty quickly? Bob, we'll go with you first, and then we'll go to
Sure. One of the things that we've been really emphasizing is getting knowledge about your industry, okay? And that is going to outside sources, watching social media, watching the trends, going to association events. Those will be the best indicators for you as to when's the star going to start, the compass going to start pointing north again. The other thing that gives you an opportunity for is all of a sudden that flushes out maybe some new opportunities, some new ideas. And that you can grab a hold, because we see some of the best growth that happens with companies and I'll address this because Kathy had this as one of the questions. What shouldn't you do during a recession?
Yeah.
And my first thing out of my mouth is you don't cut your marketing or sales spending, okay? Or if you do, slightly, because we've seen recession after recession, and this is well documented. The people that maintain, through good times and bad times, come out 200 to 300% above their competitors, because when you cut deeply in these areas, it's a long, steep climb to get back out of them. Okay.
So Bob,
Now,
still, you have to be attending these events, whether
yes,
economics are bad or good. You should be doing. I love that.
Absolutely. You monitor, the trade magazines, the journals, the social media, and educate yourself, because you are the person that's going to bring the lead and the questions to a business owner, your prospects, or anybody else, because they're not absorbed in all this stuff all the time. Okay. But better yet is asking the question of customers. That's why I love peer groups, because now you got a collective of people around coming from a whole bunch of different perspectives. And now you got a multiplication factor of 12 people maybe that are, bringing in information. And you hit it on the head, Tom. Getting to these conferences, these events, and networking, it's the best source of understanding where stuff is going. That's my 2 cents on it.
John, how about you? What would you add to that?
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer in good times or bad, you must already be executing on a plan, right? So you already, when times get tough, it's not the time to develop a plan. And you need to make sure you're testing your plan to make sure your plan is working. So every quarter you've got a plan of who you're going to target. You've got your ABC clients, you know who your ideal customers are. But in tough times, so assuming you have a plan and you know how to create a plan, and you have a coach that's helping you with that plan, not just do more every day, that's not a good plan. But assuming you do have that plan in place, and certainly we can talk about that post-call, but going back to customers or going back through your CRM and looking at customers who have bought in the past and maybe haven't bought in the last year or so, again, you have credibility there. Go back to those clients and say, how are you doing, right? Do you have certain needs? Oh, by the way, we have a loyalty program, developing a loyalty program for customers who purchased in the past. We're doing, when, dating myself a little bit, but in, 2000 and then again in 2007, 2008, we created loyalty programs for our customers to reduce their annual renewal. Right today, that might be your subscription. And while no organization wants to, aggressively or reduce their revenue stream, you do it temporarily, and you do it with the caveat that times are tough, and we're going back to our loyal customers, and we're giving them a reduction on wherever you can. And it's limited, and we're doing it, to help out in these difficult times. That's another opportunity to re-engage with those past clients or customers and build that loyalty. And one last thing I'll share, and Bob hit it, when times get tough, it's, the CFO is immediately thinking about how to reduce. And certainly there's an element of that. that needs to take place because the balance sheet, has to survive the next quarter and the next year. But reduction, it's also a time to potentially invest in certain areas so that as we come out of this, we're that much more positioned to take market share from our competitors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will just add on. I think John touched on it. We've had some really strong success with lapsed customer communications and campaigns. We have also had, like the opportunity kind of campaign where we've got, a certain product availability. We want to just make sure it's here and ready for you. We can get it to you in a day or 2 days, depending on. So, being able to communicate where you've got a surplus, but not making it feel like it's a fire sale, making it just feel like it's a value added communication has been highly, has had some strong success rates. And then, automating things like quote follow-ups,
Right.
when we work with leaner sales teams, being able to add automation into the equation in terms of being able to reach more people. You can do it in a very personalized way. If your customers love customer service, they want to hear from you. They want to, be checked in on. So there's no harm in making that an automated experience if it still feels appropriate and custom. So, a lot of opportunities to use sales and tech enablement strategies to keep the communications going and in front of your current customer base.
I'll give you one thing, a personal weather vein on what's going on. I'm getting inundated with 0% interest for 18 months cards and all this stuff. I can guarantee you when they stop doing that, that's when the economy is going up, It's like, wow. I mean, it's like overwhelming,
That's
and
the
everybody.
canary in the coal mine, right,
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, exactly. It's really been very interesting to watch that because it clicked in with me. All these recessions, especially when the financial people are giving you incentives to do business with them and everything like that, and consolidate debt and all that stuff, then that they're getting desperate. They're doing things to make sure that they have continuity with what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, we are getting close to time. So, Dom, did you have any final questions you want to put
I
out?
just want to make a final statement. I saw a woman speak. She had just written a book called Love Your Team. And she started the presentation by almost apologizing for using the L word in business. And I walked up to her later and I said, I think that these times call for care, customer care, caring our people, loving our people. And I just want to say, hey, Bob, I've known you for a long time. You've been such a positive influence for me and so many other Chicago salespeople. And it's just a pleasure to have you in my circle. If you are not connected with Bob Lambert, you need to be. He's one of the sharpest salespeople around. And John, I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. But this has
Absolutely.
been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just glad to have you guys in my circle. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. That was so sweet. Well, I do want to let people know how they can connect with John or connect with Bob. We've got their email and their LinkedIn contact information posted. So, please feel free to reach out if you've got any one-to-one questions you want to ask from either of them. And just put business as unusual in the subject lines. They know it's the real deal, that you really are asking a solid question. I do want to always, show gratitude for our sponsors. We have HR Source, M3, Tom Latteray is from M3, and then Insperity. They sponsor the Business as Unusual, and we're so super grateful for their support in getting this great content out to the network. And then lastly, I want to talk about what we're doing in August. So we've got a really great session planned for our next event. It's Mastering Modern HR and Navigating the Challenging Labor Market. I mean, it has been really, really an interesting time in the talent space. And so as the workplace landscape continues to evolve, companies are really evaluating and then reevaluating their retention and hiring strategies. So there's a lot of opportunity to really rethink how you go about your staffing plans. And so we're going to be joined on August 17th by Mary Lynn Fayumi, who is of HR Source. She's going to be my guest host. And then we're going to have Sandra Teague the director of human capital management at RSM, and she, has been charged with helping build out this practice area at RSM. We're going to talk about what are the pros and cons of outsourcing and when it's appropriate. What does that modern HR department look like, and how can companies find the right people to lead and and bring both the HR administrative side of the organization to the table, but the people development, like we talked about so much, the coaching and mentoring and learning opportunities to our teams. And then how can companies set the stage for a workplace culture that meets the needs of new hires and senior staff? So really, we're still employing lots of age ranges and different personalities and different capabilities in our workplace. So what would that look like? So a really, really meaty session coming up in August. So I hope you'll join us for that. I want to thank you all for being here, Tom, John, and Bob. What an incredible session. I could have gone on and on and on, as we always do. There's just so much opportunity to learn in this space. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. I would share one last thing, right? I've been doing this for over 30 years now, and on this call, I took away some great advice. So, there's always things for all of us to learn. And we did speak a little bit and focus on selling in difficult times. That said, there are lots of great customers who are out there and buying. Business is good in many areas. There's a few industries that are struggling a little bit, but overall, I would share with you, things are rolling really nicely.
Yeah, definitely seeing activity levels pick up. We had, as I mentioned, a couple of clients share their experiences yesterday and doing, really, really well. So to your point, there's a lot of industries that are performing well. You just need to be able to know where they are so you can tap into those as well.
I'd love to be selling road construction because it seems like that's going on everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the road construction season here. So thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody. Great spending some time.
Yep.